everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Pattison Report podcast. As always, I'm Brandon. That's Ryan. And we've been fortunate in the last few weeks. We've kind of had, generally speaking, the fall and the winter, we have to find a way to talk, 30 minutes of Eagles. And not that that's ever really a problem. But we've been fortunate lately because the Sixers have been making some headlines. We've been kind of able to split the show. This week, though, we just talked about this in our pre-show meeting. I don't see a way that any news outside of the link, can compare to the kind of the weird dichotomy of what the Eagles are right now. I mean, you're the top seed in the NFC, which is awesome. Defense is rounding into form, which is, great news. But there's this cloud. There's this 2023-esque cloud around this team. And where the record doesn't accurately represent how the city feels, how the players seem to feel. And I think that's worth spending most of the show on, is just the perception versus the reality with the Eagles. So I'm curious to see where you're at on that whole section. Is it a complete hoax where all seems well and it's not? Is everyone else overreacting and everything's fine, or are we somewhere in the middle there?
We have to be somewhere in the middle. I mean, it's been gone on too long to not be a serious issue with the team, because it's been week after week after week. It started in week 1 and we're all the way up to week 11 now, and it's still going on. And, the more I hear about the team and what's going on, I think it's the coaching. I think it's Kevin Patullo. I think he is not making a good enough effort to get the ball to his stars. If you can't scheme your guys in space in the National Football League, you probably shouldn't be an offensive coordinator. I mean, we saw that with Saquon. He schemes from the open field. He makes a man miss 41 yards, and then, the long play to Smitty. But that was it for the whole game. I'm sick of these inside zones on 3rd and 12 and not letting Jalen try to get the first down.
I'm glad you brought that up because, look, we could spend, and we probably will spend 2/3 of the show on, the Eagles coaching issues, Eagles scoring issues, but something different this year, and I just heard Nick Sirianni talk about it. So let me try and call this back up if I can. Yeah, it just kind of speaks to what you're talking about with the inside zones on 3rd and 12. And, Nick Sirianni said that, the number one thing to stress on offense is winning the turnover battle and not giving the ball away. And he goes on to talk about how they want to be explosive too, but the goal first and foremost, is a quote, is to always win the turnover battle. And I think that's important. Obviously, you can look at all the numbers. Winning the turnover battle equals winning football games. I do think that we might have overcorrected. People were critical of Nick and critical of the offense for being too flashy, too boom or bust, too all these things in the past. And I think that we've now swayed so far the other way to where we're afraid to turn the ball over and afraid to take chances. And, you make a great point. Like, you have all these weapons. You have a quarterback who can run. You have last year's top running back, top offensive player in football. You have 2-star wide receivers. You have a top 10 tight end. Like, the list goes on. We are the exact type of team that should be pushing for a first down on 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15, et cetera. It's so disheartening to see Patullo, and to some degree Nick Sirianni is culpable too, kind of throw the flag on those 3rd downs and just run and be afraid to turn the ball over. I think we've overcorrected there.
Yeah, I think we overcorrected as well with, being a little too conservative. I wish it wasn't that way, but you got to get the run game going. You got to get the pass game going. You got to get the ball to your stars, and running the ball with the backup running back. I like Will Shipley. I like Tank Bixby. Don't get the words twisted there. I like both of them as players, but an inside zone handoff when you have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, and Dallas Goedert, it feels almost disingenuous to the rest of the team.
It is. It's like we're playing with 2 downs. Like, if what we want to happen hasn't happened by 2nd down and we're not within, 10 yards. See, and it's the NFL. You're going to get a false start. You're going to get a holding penalty. Shit's going to happen. I mean, I can't, how many plays got blown up behind the line last against Green Bay? It's almost as if as soon as we have a negative play, we throw that drive out the window. You can see the play calling change. If 1st and 10, there's a hold, we come back, it's 1st and 20. I can tell you what's going to happen. It's a screen, it's an inside run, it's trying to get those yards back, and you're throwing in the towel on that drive right away. And I know we talked about how Dallas Goedert's a top 10 tight end. I love Dallas Goedert. I have been pounding the drum to keep Dallas in Philly as long as he wants to be here, because I think we let Zach Ertz go. Well, I know. We've seen how his career's turned out. He's still got a lot left in the tank. We let these guys go too early, but I also don't need Dallas Goedert to lead my team in targets. We're too talented for Dallas Goedert to lead this Eagles offense in targets. He's great. I love him, and he's a great safety net for Jalen, but he can't double A.J. Brown in targets. We just can't have that be the plan.
Mm-hmm. And maybe this game will be the game to get back on track. But, speaking of the Lions, we saw they had a problem getting the ball to one of their stars. Jameson Williams wasn't getting the ball enough. Dan Campbell took over play calling duties from the offensive coordinator. And what do you know? JMO has his best game of the season. So just goes to show you.
And he's a similar guy to Nick. That's, I'm a Nick guy. I think we're both largely Nick guys on this show.
I'm starting to turn the other way. I'll tell you that much.
I think it's getting harder to argue with the people that say he's only as good as his coordinators, because, there's a lot of evidence that supports that hypothesis. But you look at a guy like Dan Campbell, he's a Nick Sirianni guy. He's a football CEO. He's a motivator. He's, not a life coach, but he's a coach in a different sense. I don't look at Dan Campbell and think brilliant X's and O's. That's not necessarily Dan Campbell's value. However, being that CEO of the team, when shit's going sideways, he has to step in, do what he did, and correct the issues on offense. What frustrates me with the Eagles, and maybe it's because of the record, maybe it's some kind of complacency with them falling there. It's like it's not a big deal. Like, the fans feel more angry about the direction of this offense than the team does. You hear Patullo talk, you hear Nick Sirianni talk, and it's this, status quo, all is well, we're winning, it'll be fine. And if anybody's honest with themselves, it's not fine.
No, it's tough to be fine at 7-2, and it's not tough to be fine, but it's tough to have this look at 7-2 where the team, the media is, throwing drama at it. But I think the Eagles get a really unfair treatment from the media. Like, the national media, when they lost to the Giants and they lost to the Broncos, It was bad. The media was just like, oh, it's over for them. The window's done. Shut it, close it, Then you see Josh Allen lose to the Dolphins this past week, and it just gets ignored. So,
yeah, I think to a degree that makes some sense. I think I look at it as more, Josh Allen can do no wrong, because he's, there are guys. There's just guys that these leagues choose as, the holy one. In baseball, no, he earns it. Shohei Ohtani's a star, but you've seen the memes, and you've seen ESPN will only tweet about baseball when it's Shohei related.
That one was really bad.
There was one where it's him draw. Yes, but they were like, Shohei tried to send this one back to the States or something like that, and but it was a strike. He missed.
It was a swinging strike. Now, come on, what are we doing?
Yeah. Josh Allen's one of those guys for football, but because I don't think ESPN's wrong. Where if you see. You're watching this Eagles team play, and you can see offensively how many things aren't right. And then when you see them drop a game to Denver or New York, I'm not saying the world should be over, because it shouldn't be, but it does show you how easily this team can get got if that defense isn't having a generational type day like they did on Monday in Green Bay. This team is ripe for the taking if Vic Fangio doesn't put on his wizard hat and bail us out time and time again.
Yeah, but it feels like that's every team this year. There is no 2024 Eagles where it's just a super team. Yeah, we could say that, right? I know. Yeah, I know people are like, they don't like that term thrown around because they're like, oh, Jalen Hurts has a super team. He needs a super team to succeed. And the Eagles were by far the most talented roster in the league last year. and it showed, and they won the Super Bowl. They lost some pieces, and then none of these teams have really stepped forward. I mean, you do have Seattle and Los Angeles beating up on everybody, but the Eagles beat the Rams already. And I don't know if the Seahawks have been properly tested yet. So like there's like no teams up at the top that are just running away with this in either conference. Cause like the Bills, like I said, stumbled. The Chiefs have stumbled against the Jaguars. So, I mean, the Ravens, they're still 3-5. So
yeah, I mean, I do. I agree with you. We're not falling behind anybody necessarily, but we're also too talented to not have taken the reins that way. I mean, did we lose some pieces? Absolutely. I mean, the only one I would argue that we haven't properly addressed / replaced is, CB2, which anybody with eyes could tell you. I think we have edge figured out. Ajomo has stepped nicely into the Milton Williams role. Jalen Carter seems to be rounding back into form. What?
You see that 4th and 1 run for Ajomo? You see him call out the play?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he's
what a stud.
He's filling that role really nicely. Zach Baun's back. The linebacking crew is ridiculous with Baun, Campbell, Bean, technically Smith off the edge, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, the biggest, we've lost. CB2 is a problem, and that OC is the way I see it, our biggest problem. I mean, the offense came back by and large. I just think this team's too talented to be beating the Packers on Monday Night Football. In reality, what was it, 17-7?
10-7.
10-7, yeah. That can't happen. We're just too good for that to be the case.
It absolutely cannot, and it's tough because the Eagles are winning all the games they should. They just dropped 2 stupid ones to the Broncos and the Giants, who they're better than. But they, in the grand scheme of things, it's still going to plan because they have the tiebreaker against the Rams. They might have the tiebreaker against the Lions if they win this weekend. This weekend's a huge game. They have the tiebreaker against the Packers if the Packers start surging back. The only contender, they have one over Tampa as well. We beat Tampa. So the only contender that we don't have a tiebreaker over is Seattle if we beat the Lions this weekend. So everything's still going according to plan. It's just extremely rocky.
Yeah, there's something about the way you win. And I think we learned that in 23. I don't think we're in for a repeat of 23. God, I hope not. But this team's not winning convincingly, which makes me nervous for the future. But at least we're winning. The looming cloud that is probably it's a symptom of this larger problem of the offense kind of stagnating, but one that's rapidly coming to a head if it hasn't already, and that's the A.J. Brown situation offensively. It popped up for a little bit last year. Kellen Moore was a good enough OC to course correct, get him involved, and then he kind of went away. And, he was happy, Jalen was happy, all was right in the world. This year, kind of hearkening back to what I mentioned before, where those changes haven't come, and we've been kind of stuck in the status quo. AJ's been stewing week after week after week, and it's getting louder, and now it's getting more public. And you hear, Jalen Hurts talk about it, and he's very dodgy about the question. Nick Sirianni's done answering it. There is something wrong with A.J. Brown and the Philadelphia Eagles organization, and that can't be the case while also being successful. It needs to get solved because it's going to become a distraction if it hasn't already.
Yeah, we were talking about this early in the year because that's when it came up, his slow string of games. We're like, it's not a problem. It'll get fixed.
Well, because it has before. We were wrong. We've already seen this. It did get fixed, but then this year it hasn't.
Exactly. It's really weird how it's all gone down. I mean, Sirianni blamed it to the Packers rolling coverage A.J. Brown's way. That's why Devontae Smith was open so much. But you got to get this man his targets.
And I saw, God, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. You might have seen it too. Our feeds are pretty similar. But there was a number of his over-the-middle targets, and he's among the lowest in the league in targets across the middle of the field. That seems – here it is. A.J. Brown has run 14 crossing routes across the entire season. 137 NFL pass catchers have more crossing routes than him. How do you look at the body type and the body of work that is A.J. Brown and not run quadruple the amount of crossing routes and slants to get this man, into some space, get a defender on his back and let him go to work that way? It's malpractice, the routes that we have him running.
Look, that's the problem, but it's also the problem that Jalen doesn't look his way over the middle. Like, there was a screenshot from the Packers game. Of course, all the the screenshots are great. You don't know where he's at in his progression or whatever when he's looking. But he was running open over the middle again. And this happened at least 2 other times this season where you got the screenshots of A.J. Brown just running wide open over the middle and Jalen's not looking at him or not throwing him the ball. So I don't know what the problem is there. It might be I have to look at Jalen's heat map. That's what I got to look into.
Yeah, because it is hard to explain why. I mean, he is the perfect body type for those tough over the middle catches. And like you and I were just talking about, where you have these 3rd and 10, 12, 15s, that is exactly when I would want to look at A.J. Brown over the middle like that. Even if before you get to 3rd down, if you're second and behind the sticks, put that ball out in front of him. He's impossible to tackle one-on-one, and let him chew up 8, 9, 10 yards on a slant or a crossing route. We've seen him do it over and over again. It's felt like the only way he gets a look anymore is a 50-50 ball down the sideline. And I get it. He's huge. He's muscular. He's fast. He's a really good – when he's given the chance, he's unstoppable one-on-one. So I get it. But we've pigeonholed him now into so many few routes that make sense that he's not seeing any targets.
Mm-hmm. It's just so weird, and I don't know what's gonna solve the issue. I don't know if Kevin Patullo, the buys happen, so the time to adjust the offense was 3 to 4 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah, now you got to adjust on the fly.
You got to just. I don't trust him to do that. Or
no,
that week was last week, and he had 2 weeks for Green Bay, and it didn't look like he prepared at all.
No, that's what drives me crazy. And his post-game interviews, he's becoming like Doc Rivers-esque for me, where, somebody in the Philadelphia media, we've said it 1,000 times this podcast, they're brutal, largely uneducated a lot of times. They beat a dead horse. I'm not sticking up for them, but they're very valid questions about, look, this offense clearly isn't working. What are you doing to fix it? And I'm getting really tired of hearing him say, well, no, actually it is. Based on this, and this offense is actually working well. We're just not as explosive. I'm getting real tired of hearing how everything's actually fine with the offense when your franchise receiver can't get a target. Something's broken.
Yeah, something's broken, and those answers do, tick me off as well. But you can tell the clear difference. It feels like Vic Fangio didn't take a step outside the film room in those 2 weeks outside the facility.
Vic Fangio is a weapon.
He showed up. He saw the Phillies lose to the Dodgers, and he locked himself in the facility. And he said, "No more points around this place."
And he's the reason we're 7-2. Oh God, who said it? Was it Landon Dickerson in the locker room that just said, "I want to formally apologize to our defense"?
That's great.
But it's true. It's true. Those boys are working overtime. Vic, you talk about the tale of 2 coaches. Vic is kind of becoming our Steve Spagnuolo. I don't worry about him going to be a head coach. He's going to set up shop and run this Eagles defense until he decides to go down to Clearwater and watch the Phils. But he's just he loves it, and I don't know. We're so lucky to have him because this season would be so different without him. But yeah, you're right. He had his guys so prepared that Ajomo, first-year starter, is calling out plays, and then you go on the other side of the ball, and nobody seems to know what the fuck is going on.
It's ridiculous. I don't get it. It kind of feels like that whole Jamar Chase thing. I don't know if you saw that, where they're like, you tell the defense anything to help them out. It's like, it's not my job.
Yeah. That was a stupid question.
That was a ridiculous question, but it's just funny that that's what it kind of feels like in Philadelphia, where the defense is they're gonna start asking those offensive questions to the defense. They're like, are you disappointed with the offensive performance and having to be out in the field all the time? I could see it coming,
Yeah. All right. I just got on the Philadelphia media for beating the dead horse, so I don't want to do the same here. The AJ Brown drama will continue to unfold, but I think 20 minutes spent on it is sufficient in that regard. But there's another thing that you and I texted about. It kind of speaks to the Eagles culture, but it's not AJ Brown centric. There's a reason that two guys have come here, spent about a week, and retired. And I can't put my finger on what the hell it is, but we went from, and we still are, we're a destination. Guys want to play here because they want to win. But, you remember how this locker room used to be talked about across football, about how tight they were, about the college culture that they created, and the guys love it here. Something shifted, obviously the AJ Brown stuff aside, but when we just had two guys either sign here or get traded here and retire almost immediately. Do you have any suspicion as to what that could be?
No, I don't think it's a culture issue. I think it's two guys who are prioritizing either their family, in Jair Alexander's case, is mental, and prioritizing themselves. I don't think there's a culture issue here. I think that those players were just done with the sport, and I applaud them for retiring. I know it stinks for the Eagles season, but I can't fault the guy for retiring when he knows he wants to leave the sport. You know what I mean?
Jair could be a separate situation. I'll tread it a little bit lightly there because apparently this, this knee injury and not being able to do what he used to do has been,
tough.
Strained mentally. He was a number one corner. Now he's barely cracking the rotation in Baltimore. All those things to be said. I would have rathered a bit more transparency, especially Zadarius signed here. That was a conscious decision. If he wanted to retire, that's fine. But what's bizarre was you were out, signed, played, and then decided to go back out again. And then in Jair Alexander's situation, that welcome press conference, he kind of seemed to have a plan on how to get back on the field, what his role was going to be, what he thought he could do as an Eagle. And then days later, when they asked him about the upcoming game, that plan had changed. So, I can understand to a degree, hey, look, especially getting traded, hey, look, this is where my head's at. I'm not going to report. I appreciate it. Both cases either played or gave every inkling they were going to play and then pulled a 180.
And, I looked into it more after we talked. And, sometimes it does happen where, you're in, and then the last second, it just, something changes and you can't fault somebody for that. So I don't know why Zadarius retired. I think it wasn't anything to do with the team. So it looks like that was personal as well. So if you're retiring and handle personal stuff, these guys have played a long time in the league. It's not like they're,
Jair's 28.
Yeah, but he still made a lot of money. He's good. Hopefully he's good mentally as well and physically, because like I said, it's tough to one of those devastating injuries. It's tough to come back from. We don't look at it the same scope because, it's like, oh, ACL, 9 to 12 months, they'll be back. Mm-hmm. You don't count in all the hard work and all the ramping up and what it takes to actually come back from that. I think we as a collective group, I'm not just talking about us two, but we as a collective group have kind of forgotten about that. Those injuries are tough, any kind of injury.
I know, but then you get back, you climb the mountain.
It's tough because sometimes your body doesn't respond right, or
I don't know
what
that's different. That would be something that the Eagles training staff would know. That if he's just a shell of himself on, physically, then that's completely different.
After this past week and a half, I think we should all provide these players, whether they retire or something's, happening, that the grace that you never know what's going on. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping he's all right, but it's just a weird coincidence. But
it is weird that there's 2 retirements on the same team midseason. I get that. So it was worth bringing up. It's just, nowadays I can't fault anyone for prioritizing themselves over anything else.
All right, that's fair. Well, 25 minutes will do it for tonight. We will check back next week. Hopefully that everything is all well and good at the link, and this mid-season panic turned out to be nothing. But the Detroit game will tell us all that. So in the meantime, I'm Brandon. That's Ryan. We'll see you later.